Hey gang, Rodin here. Welcome on back to the Cade and another episode of our one-day playthroughs where we do a deep dive into games that, unlike a lot of conventional games, can be beaten in some in an hour, some in a day. And for this one, we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to go back to 1989 and we're going to play a game that was featured originally on SNK Neo-Geo cabinets, but was later ported over onto the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. It's called UN Squadron, and it's based off of a 1979 to 1986 manga called Area 88 that actually was quite popular for the day. They turned it into an anime in the late 80s or early 90s. But the reason why I want to highlight this is, one, because it is a game that you can beat in a day if you can manage to get through it, because it's not going to make it easy for you. And two, it's one that has a really interesting history to it because in order to get it to be in the arcades, they had to, being Capcom, the company that designed this game, had to spend a considerable amount of money on a technical infrastructure that would back up being able to play. Now, how this game works is pretty simple. You get to play one of three mercenary pilots who all fly bespoke airplanes. One is Japanese, that is Shin. This one is Mickey, who flies an F-14. And the third pilot is a Dutch pilot who flies the A-10 Thunderbolt. I do like about this game that they're actually basing the aircraft on real-world tech, as opposed to trying to come up with something more fantastical. But from here, it is a straight bullet hell game. So in this screen, you get to pick any offensive or defensive stuff you want to add to your fighter, and then it is let's go to town. Now, I will warn you that the bullets come fast and furious in this game. I hope that does not get you saved by mistake. But I would be lying if I said they did. And unlike conventional bullet hell games in Rail Shooting Time, rather than having it be a one-shot insta-kill sort of situation, if you look down in the left corner, you will see a health bar which is now, unfortunately, fairly low. And you see my avatar up top blinking red lights, which means I can't take too much more damage, otherwise I am dead and it's game over. And you definitely don't want to get hit by the big missiles, because the big missiles... And I demonstrate right there, take the most life out. Now, when I say this game had to have special infrastructure developed so it would be able to be played in arcades, what I'm talking about is a special motherboard that was called the CP system that was developed by Capcom in the late 1980s at a substantial cost to the company. To put in perspective, when this game when the motherboard was designed, it had two CPU chips on it, and those chips alone cost in $1989 nearly $10 million to develop. In 2023 adjusted dollars, that board would have cost $25 million. Now, this was not the only game that they designed this board for. A lot of the high-end games that Capcom was designing that they wanted to put in arcades, including stuff like Street Fighter II, required this architecture to really pop in arcade cabinets. So Capcom was willing to put their money quite literally where their mouths were in order to come up with something that was going to get people's interest in staying in arcades, because Capcom saw very quickly with how well the Nintendo Entertainment System did, that the days of people shelling out copious amounts of money to hang out in the arcades for hours on end was very much an engaging prospect. life here, so hopefully we'll have a better luck. this guy. Yeah, no one's making and got it. Now, even though Capcom did port this over to the Super Nintendo, like I said, they did that in 1991, while this version hit arcades in 1989. So it did take a while for them to get it over. So in this version, now you have to go and take out the invisible stealth bar. And this time, I think I'm going to pick me up some extra life and the life bar. Now, if you choose to play the Super Nintendo version, you would not be a fool for doing so. Because that version is actually very highly rated. Its aggregate ranking on game rankings is still at 87%. But when IGN did their listing of the best Super Nintendo games of all time, UN Squadron came in at a highly respectable 37. So it is far from being a terrible port. The reason why I wanted to show it on the Neo-Geo side, though, was because I thought it was more interesting to go over the reason why Capcom devoted so much resources to a board that would, in theory, show off this game in a better light for arcade players. And also because visually, I find this game, at least on the Neo-Geo console, playing on my Neo-Geo emulator, just looks a little bit better. Again, it's not that the SNK or the Super NES version was bad, but you have to bear in mind that the Super NES was a 16-bit graphical console, whereas the Neo-Geo runs at 24 bits. Which is why they're able to have a bit more power and a bit more visual fidelity, a lot higher graphics quality than either the Super Nintendo or its competitor, the Sega Genesis. Alright, run the message. There we go. So fast. But we got it. Stars seem to be against you. Okay, so now I've got a bit more money. Buy a defense shield and specialty weapon. Now, I expect this will not be much different than any other board housing, and the farther along we go, the harder it's going to be to get to the end of it, as will the bosses be more challenging. But I've got to make it through this entire level now with no life on it at all. I just died because I ran right into a floating mine. That is one drawback to this game, is that it does not come with continues, which you would think that a game like this, being an arcade game, would have had that option, because the idea being it's a quarter code. And you want to keep people playing, and what keeps people popping in quarters than deciding that they can pick up where they left off. Unfortunately, for whatever reason, UN Squadron, at least this variation of it, does not have that. I do not know. I would suspect that Super NES version does. And maybe that's an incentive to play it if you have it. That's not a luxury I can enjoy, at least not on this version. Now, this is a game that you can beat in a day, because being an arcade cabinet game, they tend to be of shorter levels. And this one is not, the level design on this isn't too terrible. I will give it that. Hit by that last missile, but we had a lot better time being able to take that out. In 2018, Complex Magazine listed UN Squadron 23rd on the best Super Nintendo games of all time list. And in 1995, total rated 63rd on their list of the top 100 SNES games of all time. Complex said it was the best side-scrolling shooter the NES ever had, which is high praise when you consider a lot of the other stuff that was available for the time on the console. But also, by the early 90s, these sorts of games were kind of on their way out. Because with RPGs becoming much more popular and the train moving towards more immersive games, again, it was folks of why Capcom decided that they wanted to build the CPS boards in the first place, because they knew that their moneymaker was going to go away and having these sorts of games available. And they weren't going to be able to get them on consoles because nobody was going to buy them. They needed to find some way to justify the expense of designing something cost that much money. Now, along with the CPS boards and chips, they did come up with the CPS 2 chips, which worked out, I guess, a lot of the bugs that were inherent in Type 1. And because of that, a lot of the arcade games that Capcom released, like Street Fighter and Super Street Fighter and all those other games, and everything else that Capcom come out with during that time, the CPS 2 boards allowed them to run with a lot of parts on it. And I don't think that Capcom would have done that had Street Fighter, the original Street Fighter, had it not been the landmark title that it became. Because people were so interested in jumping as many quarters as humanly possible into every Street Fighter cabinet that you could find. But that may have been the one thing that helped Capcom decide, okay, this is an investment worth making. Now, one of the reasons why I've never been able to find a review of it for the Neo-Geo is quite simply because the Neo-Geo in 1989, when it was released, was one of, and still remains, one of the most expensive consoles ever created. If you want to get a Neo-Geo in 1989, you need to be prepared to shell out, and I'm not kidding. The MSRP on it was $7,000. Now think about that. I have a PS5 that is sitting about 10 feet to my right from where I'm sitting recording. And that ran me in 2023 dollars about 600, which is, again, there's no small chunk of change. I would say a great many pennies to pick it up. But if SNK had decided to release the Neo-Geo as it was constituted in 2024, it would cost about $1,500. Oh, now what lasers? They got frickin' lasers. Well, that's not good. You can fire both ways. Going down. Oh, jeez. So I made it to level 3, and I made it to the end of level 3. Now I have to work our way back over there. But yeah, regarding the Neo-Geo, would you consider the idea, if they came out with it today at that price point, $1,500, is that something that you would realistically spend that sort of money on? Because by comparison, the computer that I'm playing on, which is a fairly run-of-the-mill PC, I got all the parts and I built it myself. Got to shoot my own horn, but I did. It's got all new gen tech on it in regards to the motherboard and the processor and stuff like that. That ran $1,200. So it just does not make much relative sense to spend that much on a console. Which is no small reason why the Neo-Geo never really caught on in the States. Because I don't know a lot of my parents who in 1990, let alone 2024, would spend $750 on a console for their kids, to say nothing of spending double that. If you're going to do that, you might as well get a family computer. That way, everybody's going to have a little bit of everything. There we go. Other side-scroller or bullet hell game, pattern recognition is key. But because this game operates at slightly higher speed than you may be used to, it will take some time before you really lock it down. In the 35 years I've been able to play this game, I've never even got close to it. I know it can be. actually like one of his more popular compatriots gave his profile on this Metal. That's a game you can beat. So we've got, if I remember right, 6 levels. Granted, those levels are a lot harder, with a lot more detail. They're a bit longer to play. Still, that was one of the perks of an arcade game, was that you got a good port of it, and you're able to bring it over. You knew that by design, it wasn't going to have a ton of levels. Because they want to make sure as soon as you're done with it, you're moving on to the next game. Some other kid who wants to sit down and play it, they'll come and play it. So, all right, we'll try this one more time. Let me go back to Mickey. We're a lot further ahead than we did with Shin. We still will not go for weapons on this first mission. You do have to be somewhat frugal with the amount of money you will spend at the arms sale. Because you never know, as you get further into the game, you're going to need some serious resources. Having those available is never a bad thing. Alright, see if we can find this. Like I said, once you get a bit more familiar with the levels, and it's not too much different than playing Alex Kidd in Miracle World, which hopefully you tuned in for yesterday for Suckerpunch Sunday. The more familiar you get with it, in theory, the easier it is to navigate, and the more success you have. Which is something that you can trace all the way back to when we did our playthrough of Dark Souls Remastered. The whole point of that game being, yes, you're going to die. You die a lot. Hopefully you learn the strategy by which you will not die. And therefore you get more enjoyment out of it, and you'll get farther. For instance, normally in a game like this, you try to aim towards the outside of the screen. Be as far back as possible, let the enemies come to me, but because they like to come at you from different angles. You gotta hang out more in the middle or kind of around this area. That way you can anticipate when bogeys are behind you. Spin out of the way. Something else I like about this game is that the aircraft that are in it are based on actual real-world tech. So, for example, my pilot is flying an F-14 Tomcat, which, if you're familiar at all with your city that game is fairly familiar to you because which is also a game that was profiled on the channel. After one of their places, you get a couple of months right from different resources. Like this bomber is based on the B-2 stealth bomber, which was a huge deal back in the 90s when it was originally announced by the Air Force as being something that was joining the American fighter wing. took me out, and I'm not going to be able to get much further. So we're about 26 minutes, so we might as well wrap it up here. But that, everybody, is UN Squadron that you can play if you have a Neo-Geo emulator, or you can play it on the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. It's your choice. And like I said, the Nintendo version is still very, very, very highly regarded. It still has an 87% aggregate score on game rankings. And again, it was one that was ranked very, very highly at the time, to the point where it is considered, at least in one publication's opinion, the best side scroller that the console ever had. So we have our usual two questions. Is it a good game? For its time, I would say yes. Has it aged particularly well? Not really. The lack of continues is an issue. I like that you have a life bar, but each plane cannot take a whole lot of damage before being destroyed. And it's something that we've experienced a lot in a lot of 80s and 90s games, where the balance seems a little bit off on that. Now, granted, in this game, you can buy additional stuff that boosts up your defense, but you only have it for a finite amount of time. If you were able to have it where you could take a little bit more damage and make your ability to get to the end of the level a little less daunting, I think it would be more enjoyable. Again, we're talking no more than 5-10% of a change. I'm not saying you have to go full invincible or things like that. There's got to be some inherent danger in setting out on each mission. I totally get that. But I think on the whole, it'd be something that if they tweaked it a little bit more, I think more people would get more enjoyment out of it. Is it a game they can make today? Sure, but the question is, why would Capcom want to do it now when they're so focused on advancing the Street Fighter franchise? Because now they're on, what, Street Fighter 5 or Street Fighter 6? I think it's still Street Fighter 5. And also with what they're doing with Resident Evil and a lot of their titles that have become more of their high value commodities in the last 20 years. And if they were going to do it today, I don't think they'd be able to do it as a 2D side-scroller. I think it'd be something that, because of what Namco has been able to do with their Ace Combat franchise, you could adapt it, and the manga this anime is based off of, again, is based off of a manga called Area 88, which ran for 23 volumes in the 70s and 80s. So there's a lot to mine there. And I think that if you were able to do something like what Namco did with the Ace Combat series and do it in a 3D immersive environment where you're in the cockpit and you have the storyline around it, I think that could be interesting. But the problem is you're going to run square into that franchise, which again is still, despite it being more of a niche title, is one that people like me still eat up. I can't wait for the next Ace Combat game to hopefully come out sometime soon, because I have all of them. So, you know, that's part of why I don't think we would see it nowadays. Could we see an independent game version of it come out? Maybe, but then you're running into licensing issues, and I don't know if realistically if that's feasible. So, but again, if you're looking to try it out, you can try it either on the WinKWAKS, which is WinKawaks emulator, which is a free Neo-Geo emulator, or I run the ZSNES, ZSNESW emulator for the Super Nintendo if you don't have a console of your own. If you can find it online, it's not hard to get. You can also, if you have a console, getting cartridges is still relatively easy to do. I don't know if it's cheap, considering that this didn't sell in mass quantities that I'm aware of. But if you want it, I'm sure there's a way you can find it. So again, that's our one-day playthrough for this week. If you want to tune in for WTF Wednesday coming up this week as well, where we will play a game that on paper seemed like a good idea, but in theory, maybe not so much. And also be sure to tune in as well for Sports Saturday and Suckerpunch Sunday, since those have come back in the last couple of weeks, and it's been fun to be able to put that content together. If you like the channel, best way to show it, hit that like button, subscribe if you are new, and ring the bell to be notified of new episodes as they come out. And be sure to follow us on Twitter, please, through social media not on Twitter, on social media through Threads and Instagram at Ronan's Retrocade. We're not on Twitter/X anymore. That's a maelstrom I don't want to deal with on any level whatsoever. And if there is a game you would like to see us feature from the Nintendo Entertainment System, the Super Nintendo, Sega Master System, Sega Genesis, or MegaDrive, SNK Neo-Geo, Nintendo 64, Sega Saturn, Sega Dreamcast, PlayStation 1, or PlayStation 2, Leave it in the comments below or drop me a line on social media. Again, Threads or Instagram. Can be any game from those consoles that you want. My name is Ronan. It's been great to spend this Monday with you. Be safe, be well, happy gaming. We'll talk to you on Wednesday for WTF Wednesday. Bye.